Welcome to r/Malicious Compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: maintenance coordinator ordered a working engine to be repaired at a cost to the company of $5,000. The second story: employee did not complete the work over the weekend and was fired. The third story: neighbor was being a D, and no one wanted to work with her to take down our healthy trees. We talked with the arborist and had her charged more to have them removed. On to the first story. Maintenance coordinator cost thousands to the company just to wipe the dust of an engine. Now on to the cast. Maintenance coordinator, project manager. That's the official charge of him, but he also acts as the manager for the maintenance work team. Mechanic, electrician. It's your boy me. First, a little introduction to the story. This happened back in December, 2 weeks before Christmas, so I'll try to give as much info as I can remember. In our work plan for the year, we decide the date and time required for maintenance of every important equipment of the process. The engine in question of this story is part of a residual water treatment plant. The company uses some chemicals. Can't give more details. The scheduled time for the maintenance of this plant was one maintenance every 2 years, and always be on mid-January all the way to February. It's a big structure and needs to be done in parts. But midway through November, the operator notified us that the engine stopped working all of a sudden. We then were given the orders by MC to go take a look and see what happened to it. We have a contract with the company who makes this engines, and in said contract we're not allowed to do anything to the engine besides inspection or change minor things, like the engine band and stuff like that. Anything major needs to be done by them. Said company is located 4 states away. After doing a quick inspection, mechanic and electrician said that the engine seemed to be stuck due to overheat or lack of oil. They then go back to the maintenance area to inform maintenance coordinator about what they found. This is where it all starts to go south. Mechanic: we've done a quick inspection and decided that the cause of the problem could be due to the lack of oil caused by a filtration on some part of the engine or for overheat of the engine. Maintenance coordinator: okay, I'll contact repair company and let them know about the situation. Go on and ask OP if there's any work plan for today. Mechanic: okay. A few days later, maintenance coordinator on the radio: OP, can you tell mechanic and electrician to come to my office and you come as well? OP: okay, we'll be there in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later. Maintenance coordinator: I need you guys to take out the engine and bring it here. Repair just contacted me and said we need to send the engine to them so they can start working on it. Okay, working on it. We take the engine out and bring it back to the maintenance building. Electrician: yo, mechanic and OP, can you see something different in the engine? Mechanic takes a look at the engine. Wait, I think you're right. Mechanic then goes and tries to make the axis rotate. Mechanic: I think the engine is fine. OP: yeah, maybe something was stuck in the axis and prevented the engine from working normally. I'll tell maintenance coordinator about this. OP: maintenance coordinator, we think the engine is fine. Mechanic made a little test on the axis and it seems to be working correctly. Mechanic comes into the office. Mechanic: maintenance coordinator, can we test the engine and see if it works normally? I think the problem was something stuck in the axis. MC: no, leave it like that. Just package it and get it ready to ship it tomorrow. I told you repair will take care of it. Mechanic: but if we send it like that and the engine is fine? Maintenance coordinator cuts off mechanic. Just do as I said and report me if anything happens. Now this last words is because maintenance coordinator was going on vacation the next day for 2 weeks. Project manager was going on vacation as well. Mechanic turning to me with a face of concern and turning back to maintenance coordinator. Okay, if you say so. We then proceed to do as maintenance coordinator said and package the engine. We send it the next day to repair and hope for the best. The next day, Friday, comes and we sent the engine to repair. The following will be a recap of what happens, as I didn't took part in most of the interactions that ensued, and only a recap from mechanic and electrician after everything ended. Monday comes, then Tuesday, when suddenly project manager comes to work out of nowhere. A few hours pass, and PM calls mechanic to his office. Then, after mechanic comes out, he calls electrician to the office. While electrician is in the office, mechanic tells me that project manager is really mad. Like, really mad. I ask why. Mechanic tells me that repair sent an email about what they found. Nothing, but because they had already opened the engine to take a look and did a little clean of the engine, they'll be charging us the full cost of the maintenance, $5,000, just to wipe some dust from the engine. During the week, project manager called a meeting with us and informed us to never follow the orders of maintenance coordinator regarding stuff like this without first consulting it with him, and that if we see any other decision like this from maintenance coordinator, we should inform him as fast as we can. We later found out that project manager called maintenance coordinator to a meeting in which the general director and other big shots from the company, they went all over with maintenance coordinator about taking that decision, like that even after M had told them that the engine could be fine. They even called him out on other bad decisions he's been making and told him to make sure this is the last one, or else he'll be out of the company. The second story is, no power to my equipment? Good luck running product. So to kind of give a Cliff Notes type of backstory here, I work as a network admin in a food processing plant. The people I deal with, along with the situations involved, pretty much gives me some decent content. Today's story is going to involve the weekend. This past weekend, actually. Contractors and time. Weird formula, right? Stay with me here. It'll all make sense soon enough. So it all started on Monday last week. Our plant has this engineer named, well, let's just call him Ted. Ted's an older, taller engineer, but comes off a bit abrasive and pompous at times. None of us in the IT department like him. Because of projects Ted likes to plan without notifying any of us, and yet likes to drop things like a bad habit for us to pick up. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Ted knocked on our door. I opened it and he walked on in already spouting off how they are going to renovate a couple of areas in production that will affect our equipment. Mics, touchscreens, and of course cabling in the computer. When I asked him how long it will take, this was his actual response. Shouldn't be longer than the weekend itself. In my mind, I thought, I gotta give up my weekend so that this MFer can get his crap done? My boss was with us that day though, and the three of us talked things over. And what was found out is that they can't delay this any longer than 5 p.m. on Sunday, since sanitation has to come in and clean up the production floor before third shift starts that same night. This is important to know later on. So there I was working a half-day Saturday to see how things went. There was barely any progress. I didn't even need to walk down there since the cameras we have can give me a clear picture to what I'm seeing. There was a lot of equipment being worked on, but nothing involving our equipment as of yet. By 1 p.m. I had already left and really didn't think much of it. That is, it wasn't until Sunday morning that I took a walkthrough and saw firsthand what I'm looking at. These contractors, even though both me and my boss was told that we'd get first priority in the restoration of our equipment, went on to do other projects, leaving ours unfinished. I'm talking Cat 6 all pulled out of the conduit that was ran and zip-tied into a coil, power lines that aren't terminated yet, and the stands that hold up the entire setup wasn't even bolted down. That's kind of a safety hazard. I've tried to talk to some of them to see about when they'll even finish because of the time. The lead told me, it'll get done, don't worry, why don't you go play with your computers or something? I wasn't about that crap, but still wanted to mention about the stands not bolted down. He said, oh those? Yeah, we'll get them done too. Worry less about our job and focus on yours. At that point, I had my phone record the convo, because CYA is important, and I'm not getting dragged down for this. With a smile on my face, I told them no problem, and went about my business. So I checked the phone, 336, 346, 356. You get the idea here. I've been checking in intervals to see how much time there is left before 5 p.m. hits. And this is where the malicious compliance comes into play. After 5 p.m., regardless of the situation, I'm done for the day, because it's what we all agreed on, and my boss told me, under no circumstances should you stay longer than 5 p.m. So when 4:55 p.m. came, I took one more walkthrough and you guessed it, there was no power restored to either station. None of the stands are still bolted down, etc. At that point, I just left home and had a nice din-din with my wife. The icing on the cake came when I got a call at 11:30 p.m., and it was the superintendent on a third shift telling me how there's no power to those two stations. What I said was, yeah, I know. Contractors were working on something with it over the weekend and never finished. You're gonna need to contact Ted to get them back out here to finish the electrical, as well as bolting the stands, as that's a safety hazard. Afterwards, I just went to sleep, and coming back in this past Monday, I found out from one of the first shift supervisors, who I love working with, since she knows how to fix things on her own, that the superintendent was scrambling to find Ted's number, called him and demanded that those contractors come back out and finish the job, to which they did, but didn't actually get it done until 3 a.m., due to travel and whatnot. And finally, to cap everything off here, I got called by Ted yesterday to explain how unhelpful I was in this whole project with my boss standing there next to him. I explained to him that I tried to inform the lead of what was not done in our equipment, and how it was disregarded as something unnecessary. I even pulled out the smoking gun, the phone recording. Playing it back, he can distinctly hear my conversation with the lead, in spite there being sounds of machinery in the background. Needless to say here, but Ted was a bit surprised by how the lead acted and apologized. He told us that he will closely monitor future projects like this, as not to cause another fiasco that this one caused. But the boss decided to fire him, so I didn't see him on the other shift. And the last story is Tropical Storm Zeta. We moved into our first house in April of 2018. It had recently been remodeled after the previous owner passed, and someone picked it up to flip. Well, a very large tulip poplar tree in the front was infected with some type of bug, and we had to have it removed. We had 3 companies come out and give us estimates for the infected tree removal and some pruning. We also had them review other trees that may be dying or dead. None were suspected to be dead. Forward to October of 2020. I work in the hospital, and I didn't realize how bad the winds were supposed to be until my colleagues told me about the sustained winds and gusts. So I called my wife and let her know. My father-in-law hadn't heard much about and told my wife not to worry too much about it. He lives in a different state. Well, it was bad. I called my wife a few times overnight. During one of the conversations, I could hear the loud thud of a tree falling. The tree fell and snapped another one next to it. Both landed on our neighbor's fence and plants. Unfortunately, we were unable to communicate due to the severe amount of damage in our neighborhood. We were without power for about a week. We were able to do our due diligence and get in touch with our insurance company. Nothing for us to cover except what's on our property. Well, our neighbor is peeved and lets my wife have it over speakerphone via her handyman. During this conversation, my wife lets her know we're sorry, but there isn't anything for us to do, and that her insurance will have to cover it. By this point in time, her handymen were already cutting up the trees that had fallen. She tried to say they were dead despite the fact we had them inspected multiple times. We notified her it was an act of God, and we were sorry it happened, but there's nothing else for us to do at this point. She told all of us our trees were dead in the backyard. Not true. She ended up having someone come into our property without our knowledge to inspect the rest of our trees. They stated there's a possible risk of 2 live trees. Therefore, there's not much for us to do. However, we decided to do the neighborly thing and say we'll cover half the expenses to remove those 2 trees. They were supposed to be removed by crane from her side. We got a certified letter in the mail, and we agreed to have the trees removed from her side of the property. Well, once the day finally comes, they refuse to do the work until she pays. She pays, but they say she wants to have the work done from our side. That's not what we agreed upon. The company ends up firing her as a client, and they let us know that she plans on having another company come into our property to remove the trees without our knowledge. We put up some temporary chicken wire. Couple of weeks later, we see her and an arborist. We end up going back out and see what's up. We agree that we're still willing to have the trees come down and potentially pay half depending on the price. Well, the arborist calls me immediately after leaving her house and comes over. We give him the rundown and let him know of the prior company, and that she doesn't like to pay up front, and they should get their money up front. We ended up having the company remove the trees and a couple of others for cheaper than the previous company. In fact, they padded the price and charged her 1.5 times what we paid because they hate dealing with tough clients. In the end, we have no threat of dealing with a frivolous lawsuit from the act of God that occurred during Tropical Storm Zeta and had some other trees removed too. Suck it, Gale! Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button.